Hello, Civ fans, and welcome to today's live stream.
Hello, everybody. My name is Pete Murray. I'll be your host today. I'm joined by Carl Harrison, who's our driver today, who just greeted you. Hey, Carl, how are you doing?
Doing well. How are you, Pete?
Very good, thank you. We're also joined by Anton Strenger, who's the lead designer for the Sid Meier Civilization 6 New Frontier Pass. How are you doing, Anton?
Hey, I'm good. Yeah, glad to be here.
Well, thank you all for joining us. As we've told you before, during this year, not only will we be releasing a series of DLCs, we're also going to be releasing a series of game updates for everybody in the community. And so what we want to focus on today is what's coming up in this next game update. So Anton, why don't you tell us what we're going to see today before we jump into it?
Sure, yeah, so this update, like all of the updates, has a big feature. This time we actually have two features for you, though. The first big feature I want to talk about is the Tech and Civic Shuffle mode. This is a free game mode for all players and all rule sets, whether you're playing on console, whether you're playing on the base game, you don't even have the pass or any expansions. It will shuffle the tech tree and the civics tree and make it a little bit more random, which we'll see in a minute. And then the second big cool thing is the natural wonder picker. So this allows you to tailor which natural wonders might show up on your map, so you can get the ones you're looking for or avoid ones that you're not wanting to play with.
All right, so let's jump into the game. And Carl, you've put this save together for us. You are playing as the Maya. You want to tell us a little bit about how you set this game up and what you're doing right now?
Sure thing. So, like you said, I'm playing as the Maya. We just entered Classical Age. Don't have any techs in there picked yet. We're going to see that tree here in just a little bit. I've got 3 cities so far. We're going to be building a couple of more. I use the Natural Wonder Picker to select science-only wonders, which we'll also talk about. And you can see over here on the right side of the screen by Copan, I have Mount Roraima, which is a science-based wonder. I have this barbarian invasion going on. We're going to have to take care of that. And Simon Bolivar also declared war on us and attacked the capital. You can see a little bit of damage on the city there. I was able to get walls up just in time, and then his units retreated to the northwest. So they're probably still there, and we might get attacked again.
Okay, nice save.
Yeah. Yeah, that was good. All right, so the Maya are a good civilization to show off kind of the tech and civic shuffle mode because they are going to be a civilization that kind of generates science very quickly through the use of the observatory campus. And it looks like the observatory, which is their
campus, yeah, their
place on their campus, yeah. So looks like you've got a pretty good setup for one there in Wakabnal, right?
Yeah, this is a currently a +4 campus or observatory. It's going to turn into a +8 once we get everything up and running. I really wanted to rush as much science as possible so we can power through the tech tree and see as much of the randomness as possible. To that end, we're also playing with quick combat and quick animations today so that we were able to get through even more gameplay.
Yep.
And yep, you'll be able to see more of the future. All right, why don't you go ahead and jump us into the tech tree as you've had it explored so far?
Sure thing.
And people will see.
So here's Ancient Era. You guys can see that we start with animal husbandry, mining, and pottery. That will be the same no matter what. Those 3 are always the first ones, and that's because those are the normal first 3, and they have no boosts.
Exactly.
So it allows you to start working on something that you have to hard tech before boosting something. We wanted to make sure that those were the first ones. After that, everything is random. You don't get to see what it is, and if I scroll to the right here, you guys can see that here in Classical Era. So we have horseback riding, shipbuilding, and celestial navigation available for us right now. I have achieved the boost for engineering, so that has been revealed. Otherwise, it would not be revealed until I obtain the tech immediately before it, which is why, for example, here with horseback riding, whatever this tech is still hidden from us because I've not gotten horseback riding and I've not gotten the boost.
You can think of it kind of like moving units around on the map, like you reveal Fog of War. So you can sort of see things that are over the horizon, but, if it's too far, you haven't explored that part of the map yet. So you need to have something one step before, or you need a boost to sort of like, give you a peek through the fog. The random, this game seems really interesting because astrology back in the Ancient Era was actually a leaf tech for you. That's pretty weird.
Yes, it was. So I waited on that one until I had gotten the boost, which I did by discovering Mount Roraima. and I waited until it was pretty cheap to research because I didn't want to invest too much in it since it didn't actually lead anywhere. And that can happen with any tech or civic. They can all end up being leaves. We'll actually see in the civic tree here in just a minute. There's a couple of interesting leaf spots. So I focused down here on the lower part of the tree first because I knew that would lead to other stuff and also give me knowledge by researching these things. It reveals whatever is next and gives me more information.
Yeah, and also your unique unit ended up being down there, and you probably wanted to find that as soon as possible.
Yeah, it's actually very advantageous for Maya having early unique unlocks because it means I don't have to work as hard to try to find them. I know that they're going to be uncovered pretty quickly, and that can actually be a bit of a wrench in planning for civs that do have things later in the game.
So this really does kind of shake up the way technology unfolds, and I think especially for an experienced civilization player where you're used to kind of a given progression track where you might be, trying to beeline for a specific approach. This idea of having to kind of work through the tech tree now to find what you want is a little bit more complicated. It's kind of exciting. Like you said, the Meier are sort of lucky in this case because you do have an ancient area unique unit. But if you were playing another civilization where your unique is coming along, later in the classical or medieval era, you might potentially be in a situation where you can't, reliably predict when that's going to come online for you.
Right, yeah, like if you're playing Rough Rider Teddy, as we have in this game, his Rough Riders are going to be somewhere a little bit unpredictable. So, yeah, you're going to either have to search for it or, consult the Civilopedia and see what the boost is for whatever tech or civic you need for your unique unit and sort of reveal it that way so you can kind of plan ahead of time. But it definitely does mix things up, yeah, in a lot of ways.
Now, I know people are going to have some questions about the way this works, so I kind of want to check with you to make sure that everybody kind of gets how this works. So this is the same technology tree for all of the players in the game. It's randomly rolled at the start of each game, but each civilization has to respect that technology tree, correct?
Correct, yeah. You almost think of it like a second random map. Just like you have a random map at the beginning of the game, usually, if you're playing it with a map script, you will have a random tech tree and a random civics tree at the beginning of the game, but that tree is the same for everybody. So if you're, searching for swordsman because you can't find ironworking because it's on a weird leaf somewhere, all the other players are going to be in the same boat. And so there's a lot of really interesting decisions about what comes down to, like what you choose to pursue first and what you're searching for. Can also make multiplayer team games really interesting because you can sort of share knowledge that way. And when you earn a technology and give a boost to your friend, they can see it as well. So that makes for some fun co-op play as well.
So, Carl, what difficulty are you playing on today?
I am playing on Emperor. We wanted to show the AI pushing things a little bit harder today. That's why we're seeing stuff like Simone Bolivar doing that rush before I had walls up.
Right.
Yeah. Do you want to go ahead and open the Civic Street? Because I think that there was some really interesting stuff that was happening in that. So you want to talk about what happened here that was very sort of fortuitous for you in this game?
Yeah, absolutely. So just like the tech tree, you start with Code of Laws. That's your normal first thing. Same thing here. Start with Code of Laws, and then everything gets randomized. So when I finished Code of Laws, I revealed Mysticism and State Workforce. I wanted to get State Workforce first because of the Governor title, so that I could get Governors up and running. Mysticism would normally be a really good pick because it was going to reveal 3 other civics and give me a lot of information there. But once I had gotten State Workforce, it revealed Craftsmanship, and I wanted this Ilkum policy because Maya relies very heavily on builders in the early game.
Right.
So I picked that up next, and then that revealed Political Philosophy. It was a straight line. Yeah, lucky me indeed. It was a straight line straight to political philosophy, no other prerequisites, and that's, again, completely random. There might have been more prerequisites. Political philosophy could have even been elsewhere in classical era. It could have been this one here.
Could have been later, yeah.
Right, I have no idea. It could be a leaf. But in this particular case, I had a straight line to revealing political philosophy, so I went ahead and I picked that up very early. If I had gone with mysticism, and not done State Workforce, I wouldn't have revealed Craftsmanship. I wouldn't have revealed Political Philosophy. I could have spent my entire time down here not getting to those. And that is just a really good example of how the randomness can work out both in terms of the placement that things end up in, but also that the order in which you pick things. So if I did not get the boost to political philosophy and I did stay down here, I wouldn't have gotten that early reveal. But I just happened to because of the things that I picked in the particular order that I did, and that can really affect your gameplay a lot as well.
Now, the boosts for the tech and the civics are going to stay the same as they have always been. So, for example, defensive tactics is always be the target of a declaration of war. That's not going to change, correct?
That's correct, yeah. So the parts that are random and the parts that aren't random, yeah, I can kind of dig into that a little bit for people that are curious. So the parts that always stay the same are the name of the tech or civic, the things that it unlocks, and the boost that you need to get to unlock it. And the things that are random and that do change are the cost. So within classical era, all the classical era technologies might be, one particular cost or might be another particular cost. And that's reflected in the column. Basically, are they in the first column, which is cheaper, or the second column, which is more expensive? And after that, the prerequisites are also random. And it's not like pure random, just roll a die sort of thing. There's a little bit of finagling to there where, we try to spread the prerequisites evenly so that there's not, too many things that are a prerequisite for, like too many other things. But it does still end up, depending on the game, depending on what you roll, there will sometimes be these really interesting bottlenecks. Like, you might have like the naval tradition civic as example, which is normally sort of like off to the side and not a big deal. That might be like the linchpin civic that leads to the rest of the game, which is really interesting.
That would be, yeah, that is kind of interesting, especially naval tradition, which I always feel like is one of those leaf civics that I have to go back and backfill at some point because I've, neglected it shamefully. Or
right, more situational, depending on your map.
Absolutely. So this is very interesting. This is, how did you guys come up with this? What was kind of the genesis of putting this mode in the game?
Yeah, so this actually dates back to Gathering Storm. When we were working on the expansion, we knew we wanted to extend the game further into the future. So we wanted to add a future era. There were a couple fun toys that we knew we wanted to add. So like the GDR unit, the giant death robot, we knew would be really fun. And, Brian Felge is one of our unit designers, had a lot of really cool ideas about like how to upgrade that in a different way than normal unit promotions. But as far as like what the future technologies and civics would be and like, what their identities were and what led to what, it was kind of a mystery to us because, of course, nobody knows the future. And so I just kind of tossed out one day back before quarantine when we were all sitting in the office together. I was like, hey, what if the future era was kind of randomized? So those of you that have played with Gathering Storm will recognize some of these mechanics from the future era in Gathering Storm. The early reaction from the rest of the design team was like, oh, that sounds really cool. So I prototyped it. Turned out pretty fun. And in fact, during Gathering Storm, I actually made a change so that the build would have the whole technology tree randomized, but it had all sorts of bugs, and like the UI didn't understand it at all. Like what you saw and what you tried to path to wouldn't really make any sense. So I took it back out and I was like, yeah, this doesn't really work. And also it was like it relied on a lot of custom code that I did for Gathering Storm. But when we were thinking of the New Frontier Pass, and trying to evaluate things that might be fun for everybody, we thought that like we should go back and revisit that code and the UI and try to make this mode, which I thought would be a really nice, replayable, fun thing for everybody. It was also really neat. We saw in the community there was a modder who tried to do the random tech and civic thing for the whole tree. So I sort of like took that as a sign. I was like, yes, see, someone else thinks this is a cool idea. But I felt bad for them because they ran up against some limitations that we had with the way that we had sort of laid out the UI code. So we wanted to do it right, and we wanted to do it for everybody. So that was the sort of genesis of this mode.
All right, and this is a game mode. So just like many of the other pieces of content that we've released this year, this is sort of something that you can add on top of this, and you can toggle it on or off as you want, along with the other game modes that we've had, like Mega Disasters or...
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you want Mega Disasters plus random Techs and Civics, you can totally do that. If you want random Techs and Civics plus Secret Societies, you could do that. If you want all three, you could do that. And then once we, add more modes as the New Frontier Pass continues, you can have all sorts of fun and wacky combinations. And if you want kind of like a more traditional Civ game, you can turn all of them off and still enjoy all of the new civilizations and balance updates and stuff that we're doing as part of the New Frontier Pass.
So how does this change kind of your average game of Civilization? I mean, it's for a civilization that is based on kind of like boosting yields. Like, for example, the way the Meier kind of set up, it might be it's one approach. But when you've got a civilization that relies very heavily on things like the eureka moments, like China, for example, that
Right.
probably has a big difference in how that game plays out.
It does, yeah. It really makes the boosts kind of more and less important at the same time. I think you play them very differently when you have this mode active. Because on the one hand, if you earn a boost, it can be a real boon because you get to see exactly where that thing is. You can sort of plan for it. If you line it up and like boost a particular thing that you know you want, like the tech or civic that has your unique unit, then you
Yeah.
know exactly how to get there, even if you don't know what's in the middle. The downside, of course, is that because things are shuffled within their eras, a lot of boosts might appear out of order. And so you might have, people that are used to playing the existing kind of traditional tech or civics trees might have certain paths that they like of like, okay, well, I can go here and I can get this boost and that'll help me go back over here and get that boost, and you can sort of chain them together. There are civilizations and strategies that definitely cater to that, but with everything unknown, it's much less predictable. And so sometimes it works out great. Sometimes a boost is a lot easier to do in the mode than otherwise. Other times, things don't quite line up and you might need to, have a boost that's, requires you to build units that you haven't found yet or something like that. So it can also be more challenging. So Carl picking a raw science powerhouse like the Maya, especially with, finding Mount Roraima and stuff like that and having, really awesome observatory districts is the sort of way to sort of brute force power through and just get as many technologies as fast as possible.
Yeah. So actually, if we want to take a second, Carl, it looks like there's some things going on with with Simon Bolivar. I've noticed that it looks like he had some cities under siege. I was noticing in the corner, it looks like Bogota's.
Ethiopia took Bogota.
Yeah, Ethiopia
wow.
took their capital, so I think that's why they haven't been attacking me. I'm actually going to move some of my units over a bit, see if I can put some more pressure on Caracas here in case Ethiopia takes the attack that direction.
I see a free builder.
Yeah, I'm working on that.
Yoink!
Yeah.
Nice, yeah, and the barbarian threat seems to be mostly at bay, so that's nice. Your cities are... You've got your sort of traditional Maya, capital zone.
All tightly packed up together.
Zone. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have all my districts planned out as well, so we're really trying to get this up and running here. That builder left. I don't know where it went. Probably into the city, so no taking it yet.
Well, we'll come back for it at some point. One of the things that I've really kind of enjoyed as I was testing around with this Tech and Civic Shuffle mode is that I didn't realize how much I had kind of come to rely on the way Civ 6's techs unfold to sort of pace out my own game as well too. And so there's kind of this very enjoyable element of having to sort of rediscover your way through the technologies in Civ and sort of, having a, moment of pleasant surprise. We're like, oh gosh, well, this is here now, and changing things up. I guess one of the other things that surprised me was how much of an impact it had on kind of the military game, especially because, so there's sort of this reliable progression of how often you're going to be upgrading your military units. And when that gets shaken up a little bit, you can find yourself in a situation where you're kind of going, do I take advantage of this situation? I don't think he's discovered ironworking yet. Maybe this city center is not as tough as it will be in, 10 turns. Maybe I have a window to take it now that I wouldn't normally do that.
Right.
And then sometimes you get unpleasantly surprised because, they do discover it in the middle of it, and suddenly all of their fortified stuff is a lot harder to take than you thought it was going to be.
Yeah, totally. The unit progression is much less predictable. Normally we have, each unit promotion class sort of upgrades roughly every 2 eras or so. But yeah, because things are shuffled within an era and also because you don't know where they are and how many prerequisites it might take to get there, you might have units back to back that normally aren't, or you might have units that are really stretched far away. So yeah, and it's going to be different for every player depending on their path. So as Ethiopia and Grand Colombia are fighting each other, Grand Colombia might, suddenly have swordsmen, and Ethiopia's like, wait, where? I don't even know where swordsmen are. How did you get those? So there can be some pleasant and unpleasant surprises. And it's if you find one for yourself, it's quite nice, and you can sort of strategize around that if you see it coming, which is quite fun.
How do you think? So I know it can be a little bit like human beings have some heuristics that you can apply to trying to figure out where things are or might be in the technology tree, or how you might research it, in a way to find the things that you want. How does the AI do with a random tech and civic system?
Yeah, so the AI does respect, like, if there are things that are hidden, it doesn't get, secret hidden knowledge about that. Our AI engineer that worked on this, lead AI engineer, he actually comes from a real-time strategy background, and so he takes things very seriously about, like, what is public knowledge and what is hidden knowledge. And so anytime there's a tech or civic that hasn't been revealed yet, they're following the same rules that human players are. So a lot of strategies that they might normally go for, like rushing an early religion for the religious leaders, or like going for early particular wonders, they're going to be searching through the tree just like you are. Now, that said, like as you mentioned, there are a lot of like really smart sort of metagamey things that people like Carl and a lot of our fans can do that the AI just isn't quite equipped to compete with on the same level. So like if, for example, Carl's looking for a particular government in the civics tree, and he's like, okay, well, I know monarchies in the medieval era somewhere, and he's sort of like done process of elimination, and he's sort of like looking at probabilities of like, well, it's probably down that path, might be down this path. Like that sort of nuance, the AI is not going to have, but they are going to follow the same rules, and they are going to have those same surprises against you in getting like, units out of order that you might be expecting. They'll probably surprise you. And also governments out of order. Like they might get government upgrades earlier than you, depending on the paths they take through the trees.
Okay, so somebody has asked how this will affect resource-dependent units, and I guess the question is units that require resources in order to function correctly will still require that. So you still need aluminum for your mechanized infantry kind of things. So
yeah, and yeah, like this is another sort of divergence from a normal game of Civ, where normally we try to unlock or reveal a strategic resource like before the unit that requires it, so you can kind of have some time to be like, okay, well, I'm going to go search over there. But in the cases where the unlock of the resource and the unlock of the unit happens at the same era, they might be out of order. Yeah, so you sort of have to maybe hunt for the resource for the unit that you already know how to make, which again just totally changes the strategy.
Yeah, I've actually never run across that, but that would be.
I'm not sure how common it is.
Thing,
I'd have to look at the trees again, which I haven't done in a while, to see kind of like where the distribution of the unlocks of resources versus the units are. I haven't looked at that in some time, but yeah, I haven't come across it that much in my playthroughs either. But yeah, it definitely does mix up the military game, for sure.
Okay. Actually, I'm going to get Carl, if he can, to go back and. I saw he was building a government plaza and some buildings in that. There are some changes coming to the government plaza in this update as well, correct?
Yeah, so in addition to the two big features that we have for everybody, the Natural Wonder Picker and the Tech and Civic Shuffle mode, we also have a whole suite of balance updates that are coming to the Gathering Storm rule set. So like with many of our updates, we sort of, everything is a butterfly effect in Civ balance. We can't just add, 3 gold to something here and have it be the same as adding 3 gold in the base game. So most of our balance updates do target Gathering Storm, and a lot of it targets, content that you would need Gathering Storm or the expansions for. So one of those things is the Government Plaza. Yeah, so we've been taking, close looks at what folks in the community think are like the best buildings and which ones they go for, because Government Plaza, each tier of the buildings, you get a choice between 3, and sort of they'll each give you a bonus for the rest of the game. They're meant to be powerful, they're meant to be cool and gameplay changing, but we realized that some of them were a little situational. So one thing we're doing for the Foreign Ministry, which is the one that lets you levy city-states more easily, is we're adding 3 diplomatic favor per turn from that. So in addition to letting you do this situational city-state thing and giving you the governor title that all these buildings do, you'll also get a sort of steady stream of diplomatic favor, pretty early in the game, which will help you towards, World Congress resolutions and, diplomatic victory if that's what you're going for. And then similarly over on the Grandmaster's Chapel, that lets you use faith to buy units, which is cool, but again, it's just kind of like something that unlocks for you. So we wanted to give sort of like a more passive, reliable economic benefit as well. So that will now, in addition to its other things, provide +5 faith per turn.
We've got some other changes coming as part of this update as well too. So we had a bug on console that was people were unable to press buttons to get through certain screens. That's been resolved as well too. However, when we were testing the update, very at the last minute, we encountered an issue that was causing the PC and Mac or Linux crossplay to kind of desync around mid-game. So we're looking into that right now. When we release the update tomorrow, the crossplay will be disabled. We're going to work with Aspire to get a fix in place as fast as possible, and we're going to keep you updated on that. So this isn't what any of us wanted, and appreciate everybody's understanding on this. So we'll keep you informed as we get closer to a solution on that.
Yeah, we're going to do that as quickly as we can. Let me tell you, doing all sorts of different platforms every month from working from home with the pandemic, it's pretty nuts, but we're doing the best we can for you all, and I think this update's going to have a lot of really exciting things for you. So so some other balance updates that are coming. We also did a rework of the amenity system. So we kind of realized that the happiness levels, like which revolt down at the bottom up to ecstatic up at the top, were a little bit compressed, and sometimes you'd have it just like the range wasn't quite right in our estimation. So what we did is we kind of stretched everything out a little bit. So revolt, the bottom level, will now when a city has -8 amenities or less, and ecstatic, the highest level of happiness, won't trigger until you have 5 amenities or more. So it sort of stretches the whole thing out. We also changed the sort of like penalties of the negative amenity levels, the negative happiness levels, so that they're a little bit harsher, but revolt is not quite as harsh as it was before. Some other things we've done, so amenities were a little bit too easy to come by for like new cities and stuff like that. So it used to be that every city would have a free population amenity, basically, to start with. We've actually removed that. But in order to give the capital a leg up, the palace will give an amenity so it sort of behaves like it did before. And obviously, this having the higher levels of happiness a little bit harder to reach will affect a lot of civilizations. One of the ones we identified most acutely was Scotland. And so what we've done for Scotland's golf course is that golf courses will increase your amenities by 1 as well. We've also given the theater square and a major adjacency bonus with the entertainment complex and its water cousin, the water park, so that it's that entertainment district is a little bit more useful, not just for amenities, but also for some adjacency synergies.
The amenity changes are tough. I'm not going to lie. That was something I had to kind of balance out a little bit. I found myself trading a lot more actively than I thought I was going to be. All right, so we're in a new era. Let's have Carl make a dedication, and then Carl, you want to kind of walk us through where you are with the Civics tree right now.
Yeah, sounds good. We've got a Civic available for picking right now. Oh, that's government, not civics. Here we go. So I have 2 medieval civics revealed. I'm going to go ahead and finish Games Recreation to see what these are first. I don't know where Monarchy is, or Divine Right. It could be anywhere in these group here. If we come over and look at Renaissance era, which is where Theocracy and Merchant Republic are, yeah, we've got mostly leaves. So branching off of here, these are straight paths that dead end into Leaf Civics, and that's not fantastic. The only way to progress into Industrial will be along this top part here. This can happen in every single game. This could happen in none of your games. It is completely random. We do see it a fair amount. Actually, where is it? Back here. Sorry, Mathematics is a leaf as well. Just a single one.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually continue on into other leaves like this Civic branch is. So you'll see just individual ones, and you'll see long chains like this too. So let's say, for example, you were talking about governments and revealing them, uncovering them earlier. Let's say that Merchant Republic is one of these 2. That's the government that I'd like to have is Merchant Republic. But if that ends up being one of these 2, the only way that I can reveal that is either getting the boost or getting one of these, which are also dead ends. So Monarchy could be in this first branch, and Merchant Republic could be in this last branch here. Very hard to reveal. And if I were to delay getting Monarchy to try to get Merchant Republic, I could end up in a really sore spot in terms of my government slots, in terms of era score. It can really mess you up sometimes, and I know you were talking about that earlier. So I'm going to try to find Monarchy and get into it immediately, and then if we reveal Merchant Republic later, we'll switch over.
Cool. But Merchant Republic would be your preferred one in this case. That's really where you're trying to go, because,
peaceful science, max economy sort of deal.
Yeah.
I would like to dedicate this era to Mandy and Milwaukee, though.
Oh, that's nice.
Oh, that's so nice of you.
Yay.
It's
from
and it's It's not a dark age like the time we practiced. So.
No, yeah, I did. In practice yesterday, I did hit a dark age here. I managed
Yeah.
to avoid that
Well
this
done,
time,
sir.
thankfully.
Are you going to settle that settler up in the north there?
I am trying. I was gonna put them right here. This city is throwing a wrench into those plans, but I am going to move over and settle on that spot instead. Try to get rid of this scout so I can put the builder up and build plantations.
Gotcha.
So we'll see what goes on. I want to add quickly that golf course thing, Anton. It is one additional amenity. We know the golf course already had one. It is one additional amenity. So I want to make sure that people know that. I luckily am not having any trouble with amenities so far this game. You guys see none of my cities are penalized. It's because of the number of luxuries that I managed to obtain here. But we'll probably have to end up doing an entertainment complex, which I have planned here just in case, because yeah, it does kind of get hard the higher population you have.
We did have a question come in earlier, which is how do you fix a pillaged vampire castle? This is something from the Ethiopia DLC with the Secret Societies mode. So how do you fix a pillaged vampire castle?
I believe it can even be done with a builder. I think vampires obviously are able to do it themselves, but builders should be able to repair them. However, I think the only way to repair them is if they're inside your territory. If they're outside your territory, you have to remove it and replace it with another vampire. And it's worth noting that you want to remove them and replace them periodically, because vampire castles only take the yield of the surrounding tiles when they are first placed. That does not update. Right, it does not update to higher yields if those yields improve later. So you want to, if you do improvements or if there's a storm that adds tile yield, you want to make sure to remove those vampire castles and then put them back down to pick up that new yield. So if it's outside your territory, you have to replace it. If it's inside your territory, builders should be able to repair it themselves.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and as your territory sort of expands, and as with the Sanguine Pact you might be conquering, this person or that person, it's not a bad idea to kind of rethink your placement every once in a while anyway. So yeah, right. I'd say removing and kind of building again is probably the most reliable way.
I haven't tried that yet. I will have to do that at some point. Somebody has asked if we're going to show how you can set up the wonders. We're not going to walk you guys through the natural wonder picker. It is an option that's available at the start of the game. But I guess, Anton, do you want to talk a little bit about how it works?
Yeah, for sure. So when you go to the game setup, there's two different ways to set up your game, in single player at least. So you go in single player, you go to the advanced setup, or in the multiplayer, I believe it's an option in the lobby. And there is a natural wonder picker. And when you select that, it will open up a sort of pop-up screen. It's quite similar to the screen that we have for when you choose a map. So it will kind of have this giant list of all the natural wonders that you have in the game right then. So like if you have, expansions from a DLC or wonders from a DLC or an expansion, it'll show that list kind of respective to whatever whatever kind of game you're making. There will be checkboxes on all of them. So you can sort of go through and say, like, I want these included, I want these excluded. And we have little helper buttons there for like, hey, select all of them, or hey, select none of them, if you're like trying to start from nothing or start from everything sort of thing. So what you do is there's a list of, if you have everything that we've released so far, it's over 30 natural wonders, I believe, in the game. And so it's quite a list. You can also see some text off to the side that's like, hey, this is the gameplay effect, just in case you forgot. So, like what Carl did was, like, hey, like Mount Roraima, because that gives me the science thing, and sort of tailor pick the ones that you want. Anything that's checked when you start the game will be in the pool of random things that can show up on the map. Anything that's not checked will be excluded. So what you can do with this is, instead of like starting a game with all 30 plus natural wonders being possible, you can restrict down the list to the things that you're interested in. So you could use this for a variety of reasons. Like you could say like, hey, like these 5 in my multiplayer friend group we've realized are like either too weak or too powerful and we don't want them in the game. So you just remove those 5 and like you start a game with the other 25 or so. You could, as Carl's done, say like, hey, I want to start with nothing and just like add back in a few that I really want to see in this game. And if you have a list of like, just 5 or 6, it's very likely that those are going to show up in your game depending on how big of a map you're playing on. Now, what this won't do is it won't say, like this Natural Wonder is A+, 100% guaranteed to be in your game, and you can't say, like, I want it next to my capital or anything like that, because each Natural Wonder has its own idiosyncrasies for where and how it can be placed. So Bermuda Triangle, for example, which I think Carl also included as a possibility on this map, like it has to be spawned out in the ocean, usually pretty far from the coast. As many of you have noticed on the internet, it's pretty hard to work to get that 10+10 science, but occasionally it does work out. So yeah, like there's no super guarantees, but if you restrict the list to be really small, you're going to get the natural wonders that you want.
So which ones do you, oh, he wants you to backstab Menelik. I think that seems like a
Yeah, I
bad
don't
idea.
plan on doing that.
Yeah, did you see what he did to Bolivar?
Probably wise.
Yeah. So which wonders do you enjoy putting in?
Well, for me personally, like I'm a sucker for the new ones, like Paititi and Bermuda Triangle. I think are just particularly fun, and they're like the new shininess and the new hotness when I'm playing through a game. And I designed the Bermuda Triangle, so I'm biased. I think the whole sort of like one-way teleport effect is pretty fun. So I like kind of like going on expeditions and trying to find it. It makes exploring oceans a little bit more interesting, unlike continents maps, because after a certain point, once you've found the outlines of other continents, you're just like, okay, well, let me just fill in all the ocean tiles that I haven't found yet. Maybe there's an island somewhere. But if you find the Bermuda Triangle, it's like, ooh, that's interesting. And you can sort of, where's halfway around the world from where this is, and maybe stage of like a fun, crazy invasion that way. Or on the other hand, I think as I saw someone online, you might end up stuck in a lake. Sorry about that. Bermuda Triangle is very unpredictable. But yeah, so I enjoy playing with the new ones that we released with the first DLC of the New Frontier Pass.
It is worth noting that if you have more wonders selected, then the map will spawn. So, for example, small map will spawn 4 natural wonders. If you have 6 natural wonders selected, it will spawn randomly from that pool of 6. So it just selects and spawns from there. If you do have 4 selected, it should put those 4 in, but like you were saying, they have their own idiosyncrasies, and so you might end up with a situation where you've selected only 4, you're on a small map, so it should give you 4, but it actually only gives you 3, or maybe even 2, because the map, the way that the map spawned everything, it just could not place one of the wonders that you had selected, and so that is possible. It is not a bug. If you see that occur, just be aware that that's just because the wonders that you selected just couldn't be placed.
Yeah, so like as an example, I think if you did the Bermuda Triangle as on your list of 4 things, but then as your map script you chose something like 7 seas, where there's not a lot of wide open ocean, it might not find a valid place to place the Bermuda Triangle, so it's just going to not spawn, even if that was like the only one on your list.
Right.
Another funny thing you can do with the picker is like if you don't want any natural wonders in the game, you could also do that. Just deselect all of them.
Right. Or you could put just one. Like if you select it down to just one, you should end up with just that one. Again, presuming that it was able to spawn, but that is possible. You can have fewer than the map supports intentionally.
Mm-hmm. I want only the White Cliffs of Dover.
Yes.
No other wonders, just the White Cliffs. All right. This is interesting. Looks like the game is evolving a little bit differently than it has the last time we tested it out. I noticed China had a city go into revolt. It looks like earlier, maybe passed to a free city. Yeah.
I am not sure how that happened, but yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't watching.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Maybe Teddy conquered it or something?
Maybe, I wasn't actually paying attention to that.
Interesting. And, you've been able to get peace from Bolivar, which is good, although you weren't able to squeeze Caracas out from him. So this is working out pretty well. Do you feel like you're going to be able to pursue your science victory pretty effectively here?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
Sure enough, you got you discovered Divine Right. I forgotten my spiel if we had already called that out, but you were able to find Monarchy.
Yeah, it happened to be in this first tier. I wasn't exactly sure where it was, but yeah, it ended up being right there, so I'm picking that up. Still no idea where Merchant Republic is.
Or you think you'll go back to the top row afterwards and just keep
I would like to go to the top row and at least see what this is, to try to get some knowledge of where my the progression that I have to take is going to go, but if I can't boost it, I would like to try to pick these up to see if Merchant Republic is in there somewhere.
Be interesting if you had to carry Monarchy. Would you deviate back a whole bunch to try to pick up Merchant Republic, or would you just try to power through it and see if you could
That
Just stick with
depends.
monitoring.
That all depends on the order that things appear and unlock and everything. Like I was saying before, like so much of the random tech and civic mode can be literally just random, and it's like it's not just the placement of things, but also your particular pathing. So if I end up in a position where I've revealed another government further on that it'll be closer to go to that than to backtrack for Merchant Republic, then yeah, I'd push forward. But it's entirely possible that won't occur, that I won't reveal something. It's possible that Merchant Republic is this one right here, and so it'll reveal on my natural path. So it's very interesting when you're playing through this. It's not just the random order. It is so much about it is the order that you pick things, and that comes down to, like you guys were saying, that military thing too. So like if you're trying to do you're trying to find a particular unit in order to do a military push or to do a defense, you might not find it in time.
Right.
And it's possible that you will be on the receiving end. They'll have the unit and you will not. So it can really change. It's the same for everybody. Everybody's in that same boat, but that you'll see those instances pop up, and those are perfect examples of how your particular pathing ends up mattering. And it gets more and more diverse the further you go into the different trees, because obviously people's yields are different. So I'll have high science, somebody else might have high culture, and so we'll be revealing or getting through techs and civics at varying speeds. So those kinds of disparities, including the pathing, might become a bigger deal. So somebody might be able to get the pathing right and pick something up, whereas my science is higher and I should have been able to get it, but because I chose a different path, I won't have found the same things that they did. So it's so different from what you're used to every single time. One game it might be easier, the next game it might be much, much harder.
Right.
Well, you've had a couple of good breaks for you going this game so far.
So far,
yeah. Yeah, just having completed machinery, now you have the ability to upgrade all those.
I have the ability, but not the gold.
That's, yeah.
Speaking of, let's go ahead and sell some weapons to Simon Bolivar. That can't backfire.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Promise you use them on somebody else, please? Please.
Well, I have walls. He doesn't. I'm about to get crossbowmen, so we'll see how it goes.
So on the flip side too, though, yeah, like there are a lot of parts about this mode that can be challenging. They definitely change up your play style, but I also think that it's actually a pretty fun mode for people that are more casual players or who are new to Civ. Because if you're loading up a game of Civilization and you look at the tech tree for the first time, you might feel intimidated, like, oh man, like what do I go for? Should I go for gunpowder and like path that? And, like there's a lot to juggle and a lot to keep track of, which is part of what makes the game really fun. But if you have this optional mode on, it sort of by necessity restricts the decisions that you can make. So, basically only things that are on the horizon that are in your chooser on the left side of the screen are possible. And you literally don't have information on what's coming next. And you can make certain kind of decisions about like, hey, I want to like pick the thing that's going to reveal the most things, but it's going to be much harder to go for a particular build, for example. So especially if you're playing on like a lower difficulty mode, I actually think it's a really fun mode to try for more casual players. And it's also really hilarious to see like the super anachronistic or like ahistorical paths that come out. Like in this game, it's like, yeah, mathematics, yeah, it was okay, but like it never really led anywhere. Like it ended up not being that important to the rest of human development. Like, yeah,
I feel like that's a metaphor for my high school mathematics career. Let's take a moment. There's an interesting anomaly.
Yeah, there's an interesting anomaly here. Earlier in the game, you were talking about boosts and how they can actually be really tricky to achieve in this mode sometimes. This is a perfect example. I've revealed square rigging. I have not even revealed musketmen. I have no idea where they are, let alone have obtained them. So the boost here is kill a unit with a musketman, and it's in this first tier here. It's possible that the tech that gives me musketmen is this one, and that I have to get square rigging in order to get musketmen, and therefore, the boost would just be impossible to achieve. And That is entirely possible. You do end up with some very strange things. So we have China in this game, who is a boost-dependent civ. It is possible that they will struggle a little bit as a result of this. And then other times it might work out fantastically, and you have everything fall into place because things are available faster than they would normally be, and so you pull things off. It's so different. It really is.
Well, that's to come back to Anton's point about if you play on lower difficulties levels. I am not nearly as good a Civilization player as Carl is. So for me, kind of because I'm playing Civilization more as me telling an alternate history about there you go,
Nice.
monarchy. So since I'm playing Civilization more to tell a cool story about what it was that I did in this alternate world, that the fact that the technology is something that I kind of have to find my way through just kind of adds an element to that as well too. So yeah, it's definitely not just for experienced players who are looking for a way to shake up the meta. It's for everybody, for families.
Cultural storytellers as well.
Yep. We do have a question coming back to some of the amenity changes. Somebody asked if entertainment districts and arenas still only provide one amenity each.
I believe so, yes. I don't remember it quite off the top of my head, but yeah, the main change to the entertainment complex was the adjacency with theater squares.
Right, the yields of them have not changed. They're just more important now.
Yeah, so it makes that district more of a, maybe more of a priority build, whereas before it was just kind of like, maybe if I'm in trouble, sort of thing.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, another sort of thing that the random Tech and Civic Shuffle does is sort of like another step in the direction that we already started experimenting with tech boosts back all the way beginning of Civ 6, because Ed and the rest of the design team, myself included, we were looking at people that played Civilization 5 and how they sort of had certain golden paths through the tree of rushing the Great Library, whatever it was, and so we wanted to you could still have, your path through the tree, but by having boosts, and the boosts that are easier or harder might depend on the map and your neighbors and stuff like that, sort of like will tantalize you and tempt you to maybe go off the beaten path from your normal habits. And this mode is just a more extreme optional version of that, where you literally don't know what the path is to get to your favorite thing, and so you are sort of forced to explore. And I do like, it does kind of feel like exploring the map in the early game. It sort of like preserves that feeling for the rest of the game, which I think is pretty cool.
That's a lot of fun. So another question from chat: will the natural wonder picker apply to the Earth map?
The Earth map. So I don't believe so. So the natural wonder picker doesn't apply to world builder maps. So if there's a world builder map, you're like, hey, like in world builder, I'm placing this wonder here, that wonder there. The natural wonder picker doesn't override that. It's sort of like we'll use what the world builder says is the law.
Gotcha. So, Carl, this is of all of the tests that we've done, this is the one where you have succeeded kind of the best. This is one of the nicest outcomes we've seen as we've gone through this save together. Looks like you're coming together real well into a good solid civilization. Although I just noticed Simon Bolivar has a catapult. Is he possibly going to get crabby at you again?
I am building another swordsman to bring down over there in case he does. I'm not terribly concerned about it. If he decides to declare war on me, I've got crossbowmen. I'm getting mercenaries so that I can upgrade my army cheaper, which should assist with that as well. I don't think if he does declare war, I don't think it'll be too much of a problem.
So one of the other things that I noticed is that you didn't prioritize rushing a religion in the game. Was that just because of the fact that you kind of went away from mysticism earlier on in the game, or you just didn't feel like it was going to be central to your strategy here?
It's not as necessary for a tech victory, so it was not particularly on my radar. In the way that things as far as building, what I was able to build worked out. It was not super important, and then it didn't happen. So.
And somebody has astutely pointed out that you were playing the Scout Cat enabled. So
yes,
Scout Cat's the best.
How do you get Scout Cat? Tell everybody how you get Scout Cat if you don't already know.
If you link your with a My2K account, you should be your game to a My2K account. You should be able to acquire the Scout Cat mod, which will turn the Scout unit's dog into a cat instead.
That's been out for a while, but if you haven't seen that before, it's a lot of fun, and you should definitely check it out. So another question, will the Wonder Picker be like the city focus button where you can force include or allow to be picked or exclude? So I can include Yosemite, exclude Bermuda Triangle, and allow it to randomly choose the rest. No, you're going to select the wonders that you want to appear in the game. So if you don't want Bermuda Triangle to be in the game, you uncheck it from the list, and you leave everything else checked.
Yeah, it's like
there's no guarantee at that point that Yosemite will be included. But that will be how that will be done.
Yeah, it's an on or off state. Like I said earlier, because there are idiosyncrasies for each natural wonder's placement, there's not really a way, because there's so many different map scripts that are possible and so many different configurations with how big they would be. There's no way to say like, hey, yeah, force this natural wonder to 100% absolutely be in this game. So really it's just selecting and tailoring the pool of possible ones to what you want to have.
Okay. So, what are you switching up on us here? Oh, there you go.
I'm putting in Professional Army to upgrade to Crossbowman.
Defensive. Yeah. I wanted to call out too, so what we've said on the stream is definitely not the exhaustive list of the balance updates. Something else I want to call out is we've also rebalanced the natural list a little bit. So we noticed that their faith cost was a little bit out of whack because they have a similar role to rock bands where they sort of are about, establishing, doing cool things late game for making tourism for a culture victory. We made their cost progression more in line with how rock bands are. And so that, and then we talked about the amenity balance a little bit.
That also assists with amenities, since natural parks give you amenities.
It does.
We saw that as a
Yes.
bit of a synergy to go forward.
For sure, yeah. Yeah, and then the government plaza buildings as well. Those are some highlights, but of course the full patch notes will have some more things that you can look forward to as well.
And if you're a culture player and you have Bull Moose Teddy and you haven't played with him yet, you need to do that, especially with all of his national parks focus. He's just
it's a good time.
So much fun. It's so good. If you go for Science Victory, the Space Race project text, will they appear in order or will they be randomized as well?
They will also be randomized, yeah. So Science Victory, you're going to have to, build a solid base of science per turn, and because you're going to have to seek out where those steps of the space race are, or like I said, sort of like strategically try to earn the boosts so that you know where they are ahead of time. Yeah, so that definitely does make the Science Victory different and usually harder, but again, it sort of depends on the layout of the tree. So yeah, this mode doesn't affect all victories equally. I'd say that domination is much less predictable. Science is probably a little harder, but also less predictable. Culture is probably still, culture and religion are probably still about the same. Would you say, Carl? I mean, this game is weird because astrology was on a leaf text, so it might mean that there's less competition for religions. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, there are still civics that you need to pick up when doing a culture victory, but for the most part, you don't get penalized quite as much if things are in a bad place as you do if you're pursuing military or science.
So I got a culture victory when I was playing with the tech and civic shuffle on, but I was also playing as a civilization that just can produce bonkers, culture and tourism at the end of the game, and that, Bull Moose America. So that was not hard to do or didn't feel worse. It was like, whereas trying to predict when my military was going to work the way I wanted it to was concerning and deeply troubling often, but still, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, so we've covered the Tech and Civic Shuffle. We've covered some of the changes that are coming up. We've talked about the Natural Wonder Picker. This is all going to be available tomorrow. So tomorrow at noon. 2?
Oh, I was just saying tomorrow. I didn't mean to.
Tomorrow, yes. Yeah, I think it's tomorrow, noon Eastern. Check your local time. Check our social media accounts. We'll let people know when it's ready to go, and we'll have the full version of the patch notes posted so you can see all the changes that are coming for that. Oh, good. Bolivar is going to threaten you again before we go, just like he's not. See if, I guess he's just warning you.
Yeah,
on this,
but
so.
that might be a precursor to a coming war.
He certainly has lots of reasons not to like you. Yeah.
And let us know what you think. You know, we try to keep a good eye out on all of our fan communities. I have a personal Twitter account, and there's, Firaxis Games and Civ Game often tweet about the new updates, and we look through the replies. We have many more of these community updates, these free game updates to come. So we definitely have a priority list of things that we want to work on, but we're curious to hear what things that you would like changed as well.
And there's a lot more coming this year on the New Frontier Pass. So we've already talked about the civilizations that we've kind of hinted to you. So at the beginning we told you about the Maya and Grand Colombia. We told you we were going to do Ethiopia, but the remaining civilizations are still a deep and abiding mystery. So you may want to tune in and check that out. Got new game modes coming. There's lots coming to Civilization 6 this year. So lots to check out. Thank you for watching this live stream today. So I hope tomorrow everybody gets an opportunity to download the new game update, play with Tech and Civic Shuffle. Let us know what you think. My name is Pete Murray. I've been your host today. I've been joined by Anton Strenger, who's the lead designer of the New Frontier update. And I've been joined by Carl Harrison from Firaxis QA, who's been our driver today. Guys, thank you very much for joining me.
It was a pleasure to be here.
Of course.
Okay. Watch our social media accounts and stay tuned. Thanks for watching and have a great afternoon.